so welcome to SOTALK. Once more, and we're still remaining on the subject of anxiety. So the last chats that we recorded was with my lovely friend Fiona MacLeod, a teacher who's from the south of France. But now I'm lucky to have Guy with me, Guy Lloyd, a dear, dear friend, and we've worked a bit together, haven't we?
We have.
We want to work more together, really.
We did.
Get out there early. Yeah. But so Guy's here to talk to me about anxiety because, as mates, we've spoken anyway, haven't we? And so, should we start there?
Yeah. As in my relationship with anxiety, my experience with
Yeah,
anxiety.
because I think that's
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, it's fine. I think for a long time I probably didn't understand what anxiety was.
No.
Like I've had bouts of depression.
Yeah.
And that was fairly obvious to me that this was a mental health issue that I hadn't experienced before. That I've had 2 bad bouts of depression, and the first time it happens to you, for me, and I'm sure for anyone that's experienced it for the first time, it's pretty scary.
Terrifying.
Particularly when you have this sort of, image or persona amongst your friends and family and the outside world of being a happy-go-lucky chap, which I was at the time.
Yeah.
And that was more obvious to me, the fact that I wasn't feeling very infused with life.
Yeah.
And I was spending a lot of time in bed and just lack of energy and just the sort of sadness that sort of creeps over you. That was much more obvious to me. It was like, okay, this is depression and I need to sort of ask for some help around this, and this is all quite new and scary.
Yeah. Very different to who you are.
Yeah, exactly. But anxiety was also around at that time. In fact, I think the anxiety was, from memory, this is going back about 20 years, but the anxiety definitely contributed towards the lead up towards a nervous breakdown, and then the sort of depression kicked in after that.
Right, okay. So you felt anxious, the anxiety before?
Yeah, but I think I put it down, I didn't use the word anxiety, I just put it down as worrying, really. I was just worrying about stuff.
Yeah.
And it was all stuff that was projected into the
Did it feel like it was snowballing?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
I got quite manic at the time. I can remember feeling like, because I think also in my depression, it was a reaction to something that happened in my life. It was a reaction to loss, essentially. On both occasions, like personal loss, which I found very difficult.
Very.
And I took some responsibility in it. Like I saw the loss as partly my fault, I think. So where the depression came from. And the anxiety leading up to it was, the first time round was it was almost like an antidote to depression. It was like, oh my God, I feel really sad. And the anxiety sort of gave me energy in some ways. It was like, it wasn't very nice. But
no.
It was like, at least it got me out of bed, and I was able to get on with my day, but I was highly anxious and I was at a different energy level.
Yeah.
I felt quite manic,
Running fast.
Yeah, exactly. Running from the depression, probably, like the looming black cloud that was coming. And I remember like just feeling really manic and like, this is a really weird feeling. I remember going into a record shop at the time and just spending an obscene amount of money on music that I don't think I even wanted the albums, but it just felt like I was quite manic.
Yeah.
I had to do, and I was sort of out of control. It didn't feel like I was in control of it. And then soon after that episode, like I said, it was a few days from memory, and then I just sort of collapsed on the floor and bawled my eyes out and rang my mum and said, can you pick me up? I don't know what's happening to me. I can't cope.
No.
And that's when the depression sort of kicked in after that. And that to me was the sort of more obvious thing. The anxiety sort of scared.
Well, I suppose if you're a kind of lively person, like you and I are really.
Yeah, that's
if
more
you
me.
get a bit fast,
yes,
it's not as obvious as I'm in bed. I don't want
exactly, but I was more comfortable with that because I was more comfortable because I was always quite a manic and active person, as you said. And I was more comfortable with the anxiety because that was like, oh, this is a bit closer to who I am. But the depression was like, well, that's not me at all,
No.
And people could, when I went into my depression, it was a good year long bout, and it also included moving down from Nottingham down to Brighton. But a lot of people just didn't cope with that because it was a side to me that they'd never seen. And
no, they're scared.
yeah, and they struggled to know what to. It was like, where's Guy gone? Where's he gone? You know, like, this is not used to a sad guy. I can't cope with a sad guy. Like,
yeah.
Guy's the one that sort of always
picks the party up.
Yeah,
picks
exactly.
the room up.
Yeah.
Did you go to the doctors about it?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I think my mindset at the time was like, so I just turned 30, so it was almost like, someone described it really metaphorically really well the other day. It was almost like being at a really great house party and having a great time, and suddenly like the lights come on. The lights come on and you kind of like, and everyone's gone home and you're like, oh, it's the party's over. I throughout my 20s, from my late teens all the way through my 20s, I'd lived a pretty hard partying lifestyle, I would say.
Yeah.
And so it felt like there was looking back now in retrospect, it felt like there was a crash.
Yeah, your body gone.
Yeah, it was heading that way because I was just sort of running around like a mad person, really. I was living abroad for a big chunk of the 90s. I was really into the rave scene, so everything that came with that, drinking, drugs, you know.
Yeah.
I wasn't living a very healthy lifestyle. And and it felt, looking back now, I know that I was sort of running away from all the stuff that I'd sort of suppressed, you know, from childhood, I guess. Over the years. So going back to your question, when I went into the depression, my mindset was like, well, the last thing I want is any drugs here. I was very against going to the doctor and asking for some drugs, which I kind of regret now, because the second bout of depression, I was on the radio years later and I sort of felt like I needed medication to get out of bed and go and be happy on the radio, you know. So,
I mean, I often actually, sorry to butt in, but you know, it's very difficult, isn't it, life sometimes? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As you say, when you're trying, I listen to people on the radio now that do every single day, every morning, or you know, and you think they're going through life.
Yes.
Big things happen in life where you have to turn up and show up, and it's hard.
Yeah, and you know, I know you have to do that in a lot of jobs, but I have been in jobs where you can hide it a bit more. You know, if you're working in an office, I don't think it's easy for anyone that's going through some mental health issue and having to go to work. But at least if you're hiding, if you're in the office, you're able to sort of hide a little bit. There's no hiding on the radio when you're sort of doing a public job with your TV, radio.
And it takes you've got to bring more to the table.
Yeah, you've got to find a new level.
Yeah, you're lifting it, aren't you? And
So second time out, it felt like I needed the medication just to get motivated to get out of bed and to do a radio show. Because that was about the best part of the year. But yeah, first time round, I was adamant that I wasn't going to have any drugs because my mindset was like, well, it's all the drugs that have caused this problem anyway.
Yeah, I don't want to add to it.
I don't want to keep sort of... Which I guess on some level was quite healthy because I didn't want to carry on numbing myself out when there was clearly something deep down inside me that was saying things aren't right here, you need some help, you know. So I kind of struggled through it for a while. I moved to Brighton. I was living on a friend's floor on a mattress. It wasn't the best living conditions. And you know, I was in social care at that time, so I was starting to pick up bits and bobs of work, but I found it just a real struggle to go to work. My girlfriend, now wife, at the time was really supportive and helped me a lot, and so I was able to sort of open up to her. But yeah, my mindset was like no drugs, and then eventually I got a job in a rehab, ironically, looking after sort of drug addicts and alcoholics, and there was a lot of one-to-one counselling and group therapy.
Yeah.
But because of my mental health at the time, it was like when I was in a group, sometimes I couldn't differentiate between what was going on for them and what was going on for me. I took myself off to therapy, and had a good year of that, and then things started to come together and started to become a bit clearer, and then it was around that time that I made the decision to get into radio, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was still drinking a bit, but not as much, and still smoking weed and stuff like that. There was still a reliance on numbing out some of those feelings.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was doing the Brighton thing of like, I also remember like running around town and trying every holistic therapy that was on offer, because you couldn't out to Brighton from Nottingham. You're just seeing all these cures. It's like Tai Chi, yoga, chamomile tea, you know.
Get the cards read.
Yeah, it's just like all these things that, you know, I was a Midland boy, so I wasn't used to all this holistic therapy.
No.
So again, a bit manically, I was sort of like, I'll try Tai Chi, do that for a week. Oh, that didn't fix me. I read somewhere, and I thought this was a really simple description, and probably something that I knew, but it wasn't obvious to me. It was something along the lines of depression is when you're sort of thinking about the past. Depression is sort of rooted in thinking about the past, and anxiety is rooted in thinking about the future. Something along those lines. And
which actually does make sense, doesn't it?
That really made sense to me, because my depression was very much like a loss and things that I wish I'd done differently in the past and sort of slightly regretted. And anxiety was just like, oh my God, I'm really fearful of the future.
In life, there's so many different things where people are struggling.
Yeah.
And they're struggling with loneliness, or they're struggling to be able to reach out, or they're feeling ashamed that they're not coping.
Yeah.
And it's kind of coming out and saying it's, you know, I think it's 1 in 4. I actually think it's most probably more than that at some point in their life suffer with anxiety.
Tip of the iceberg.
I think absolutely with you. So we'll ignore those numbers. And sometimes people, it's a bit of a blip and they get through it. But to some people, it can be crippling. And I think it's kind of just saying that, you know, there's levels where you feel uncomfortable and you have to push through, but there's levels where it actually stops one doing something at some point in their life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's interesting you mentioned the word control, because that was definitely a big factor in my anxiety. So I think my depression was so scary from the background that I'd had of like being the happy-go-lucky party boy.
Terrifying.
And suddenly being like afraid of life and not being able to get out of bed. That was really terrifying for me. And I feel a little bit shaky now talking about it. And when I came out of my depression, I was terrified that I was going to go back into it.
Yes.
So interesting that you mentioned some of those disorders.
Yeah.
And the control.
I just looked at it because it is an all, and also, let me just straight your arm, because I can see that like that. The truth is as well, is I grew up, my sister had terrible depression. She was hospitalised 3 times.
Right.
And now she actually helps people. She's amazing. But and I remember her saying I'd be frightened of that, but actually when things come back, it's never the same. You never feel it's the same.
No, you've got more awareness. And I did have another bout of depression, but I was understanding myself more, and I have been ever since then. Yeah. It's been a bit of a spiritual journey. But I remember coming out my first bout of depression, and then being terrified that I would go back into it. And even if I had like a sad day or something didn't go right for me, my brain would be like, you know, you could quite easily slip back into depression here, and I was terrified. Yeah,
because it's such an awful place to be.
It really is. But then you're thinking about the future. So it switches from depression about the past into anxiety.
So a really lovely, comfortable place.
Yeah, I know. It's just like So in my running around and my fear of slipping back into depression, I then slipped into anxiety. And you mentioned obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
That was definitely. I started to get a bit like that. So I got very obsessed about things being in the right place, and particularly stains on clothes. So it was all about control.
Yeah.
So a part of me felt like I couldn't control my depression, that it could come back at any point.
Yeah, so if you have everything,
So then,
just so...
If everything else is
Yeah.
in control, it feels like on some level that I'm still in control. But of course I'm not, because I can't necessarily. I probably had more control than I gave myself credit for at the time. But I haven't really got control over my life.
No, we don't.
And that's what I really learnt recently, is that with anxiety, I've had to do a huge amount of letting go and surrendering. Like, surrender is my new favourite word, and letting go my new favourite phrase, because that's 2 words.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really sort of focusing on at the moment, and because I'm doing a lot of work on myself at the moment. And there's a lot of peace. It's really hard work, because I am, with my addictive nature and problems around addiction, and with my depressive...
Well, actually, a lot of people have problems around addiction. The more people I speak to, the more people I know, when you're gay.
But
you meet lots of, amazing people. But if people suffer with, depression, anxiety, or both, they tend to reach out for other stuff, because it's such an uncomfortable place to be. You want to dull it.
Yeah, you want to dull it,
So it's very common that it all comes around the same thing.
Yeah.
You want to take it down a few notches.
Yeah, because it's not a good place to be. And,
No.
And addiction is it kind of works for a while, but it's a little bit like putting a plaster over a broken leg. It's like
you then got the anxiety and depression, as well as the needing something that doesn't end up going out.
Yeah, it's gonna work for a while.
Yeah.
But you're kind of like, because addiction only goes one way.
Yeah.
Addiction doesn't, ease off. It just increases and
No.
and it just becomes, the disease sort of takes over you. So it's and that's where the control comes from. So with for me, it's like, within my addiction, I felt like I was controlling everything.
Yes. Yes. Well, it is about most of the stuff is hanging on, isn't it?
Yeah. So if I do drink and drugs, I know that I am going to feel better momentarily from this awful thing I've got inside. So I'm sort of controlling the situation by my use of external things, something that's going to die. So I'm sort of like medicating myself, and I'm fully in control of that.
Yeah.
And of course you are for a while, but then it gets out of hand.